GQ, are you in here? Are you in here, GQ? Oh my gosh, it's GQ. What does GQ even stand for, dude? It should stand for Green Questions. I already made that joke in the last video. Hi, I'm nickisnotgreen, and when it comes to film in 2022, here's my top 5. Hit it. Oh, that intro sucked. Lots of movies came out this year, lots of movies, and I bet you're asking me, Nick, you're such a movie head. How many movies did you see? Okay, I'm embarrassed, all right? I watched like a handful of movies in 2022, but when it came to movies that actually came out in 2022, I only watched 13. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh, I never watch movies. I watched one movie this year. I know there's a lot of people like that, but like I'm choosing to put my opinion out on the internet, and I've only seen 13 movies that came out this year. How are you supposed to make a top 5 list when you've only seen 13? It's kind of like my albums thing where it's like if I get fully familiar with an album and I know all the songs on it, it usually ends up making the top 5 because I don't do that with a lot of albums. So last year I watched 33 movies total, but only 13 of those 33 actually came out in 2022. And so far for me, I have seen 12 movies this year, but not a single one actually came out in 2023 because we're only a few weeks in. Now I'm going to do a video soon where I rank all of the movies I've seen this year so far. If I keep up this pace for the rest of the year, I would hit 208 movies. And last year I only watched 30, but there's no way I'm going to keep up with it. I have like these sudden bursts and then they just end. Okay, I gave you the numbers. I did the rundown. Let's get to the list. We're going to do worst movies of the year first, and then honorable mentions, and then movies. And this is going to cover most of the movies I watched in 2022. I think it literally covers like 11 out of the 13 movies that I watched last year that came out in 2022. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. Actually, 4 out of my 5 movies on my top 5 list I gave 5 stars to on Letterboxd. So that goes to show, you know, like a third of the movies I think are perfect. I give out 5s a lot, but it's, you know, for a movie that whatever, I'm going to say that later. Let's talk about the 3 worst movies I saw in 2022. I know there were worse ones, but I only saw so many movies, so these are the 3 worst. The first one's the only one that'll be like mildly controversial because a lot of people liked this movie, but it's Smile. I was not crazy about Smile. I felt like as a horror movie enjoyer, I've seen everything already that was in Smile like done better than Smile. Like, I feel like every trope was explored, and it takes from so many modern horrors, it doesn't even seem like an homage to horror. It just seems like kind of a worse copycat in a lot of ways. There were things that I thought were redeemable, but I wasn't a fan of the characters. The story just kind of made me roll my eyes a lot of the time because I've seen it done better, like in It Follows. And it just had no character to it for me. It felt like it couldn't stand out in any significant way, and it was very forgettable to me. I cannot tell you a single thing that happened in that movie. The second worst movie of the year I saw was Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Another one that a lot of people liked. They thought it was campy. They liked Sam Raimi, yada, yada, yada. Me personally, could do without it. It was so goofy. It was so unbelievable that this is like the direction Marvel's taking. And it's crazy because it's like the one time where they let their guard down and let themselves do something different. And I think Sam Raimi did something different from Marvel, but I don't think he did it in a good way. Marvel has this trend, and this will come up later in this video too, in like 10 seconds, where they try to be loose and weird and goofy, but they end up coming off as a parody of themselves. Like, it almost seems like some sort of weird fan script that someone wrote, and not really in a good way. I thought there were bits and pieces of the script that work really well on paper, but the whole thing to me just felt like a mess, and like it wasn't being taken seriously, and I couldn't really get into the world of the movie very well. And also, like, logically, it never makes any sense. Like, I know you can say that about any movie, especially superhero movies, but this is probably the Marvel movie of all Marvel movies where the plot holes are just running wild. Like, it seriously is like tiring watching because of how bad the rules are of magic in Marvel. I watched some video on it. I forgot who made it. I'll probably find it and put it on the screen. But Marvel has very loose rules to their magic, and as you know, if you watch Marvel movies, like Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange are 2 characters that have no bounds to like what we know their powers are. You know, it's cool for a superhero to have a very acute or specific power, like, you know, this guy's really fast, the Flash, Quicksilver. It's a very simple thing that does pose some problems when it comes to the plot, but everyone knows what the bounds of the power are. And then you take that power and you expand on it. Because I'm really fast, I can vibrate really fast, and I can stick my hand through your chest and rip your heart out, you know? I don't know. Someone else can explain it better. I put the video on the screen, but I'm not a huge fan of the way they do magic in Marvel, and it just leads itself to make the movie so nonsensical. They never make any sense, really. And the worst movie I saw last year, my least favorite movie that came out in 2022, is Thor, Love and Thunder. I never thought I'd have two Marvel back-to-back movies, but I didn't really watch enough bad movies. Doctor Strange probably wouldn't have made the list, except I still just have a bad taste in my mouth. Because I watched Doctor Strange and I was like, I don't like that movie. I thought that was pretty bad. But at least it was like enjoyable. And then I saw Thor, Love and Thunder. And I was like, okay, Doctor Strange is like a goddamn Inception compared to this thing. Like, it does not make any sense. It sucks. It sucks so bad that it was created and that it exists, and it makes me sad. I say all of these things as a former Marvel enjoyer. I think Thor, Love and Thunder is an offensive piece of art. It comes from a director who has made some of my favorite movies ever. One of my top 3 movies of all time, What We Do in the Shadows, was directed by Taika Waititi, and I liked Thor Ragnarok. It's one of my favorite Marvel movies. We've heard this said a million times. This is so not a like popular opinion that when I say this, I'm like, oh, I've heard people say this. But that goes to show just how bad he really did mess it up. I could go on and on about my feelings on the movie. I think they messed up basically every character in the movie and ruined the character arc once again. I thought the addition of Mighty Thor, played by Natalie Portman, was like so horribly utilized, and the character had no reason to be in the movie except to be on the poster. And they could have made a good story because they exist out there. They are literally inspired by good stories that are written in comics. After Taika Waititi made this movie and after his performance in Free Guy, I just seriously like have lost hope for him coming back as a respected director in the future. He got goddamn Christian Bale in this movie and he fucked it up. Makes me sad, dude. Okay, let's talk about my honorable mentions of 2022 in no particular order. Gerard Carmichael's Rathaniel is a very great comedy special that is super intimate and makes you feel like different than other things have made you feel. The Batman, a movie that was a very big sigh of relief for me when it came to superhero movies, because it did feel different. And, you know, despite how dry and dark and flat the movie can feel at times, and slow paced too, for me it hit the right marks of, oh, this is a very cool, slow but really cool detective movie. It's a mystery, and once you see it through that lens and you take it slow and you understand that this world isn't the same one you know from every other Batman, at least for me, it hit very hard, and I liked it a lot. Bodies was good, I guess. I thought it was fine. I literally barely watched movies this year, so I thought this movie was good. I would say it's good. Third act is definitely the best part of the movie, and I wasn't crazy about how they did the lighting in this movie. There's a way to do the dark thing right, and I think the Batman did have it close. It wasn't close enough to appeal to everybody, but for Bodies, I think I've heard more people like the lighting in this than Batman in terms of utilizing a dark space and the iPhone flashlights, but for me, it just didn't really work. I did think the writing was amazing, especially in that third act scene that I just feel like is maybe my favorite movie scene that came out this year, or at least comedy-wise. I don't know. The House is something that I feel like people should check out. It's a Netflix original, and it's like a 3-part anthology movie. And it's like stop motion, like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's so weird. It's like 3 horror stories built together in this whatever. I don't know. Very odd and like new, and it looks just incredible. Like, it's very much flew under the radar, but I think it's very much worth watching. Okay, and that's all the honorable mentions. Let's hop into my movies of the year. Okay, so number 5 is kind of a funny one. It's the only 4.5 star on this list, and it is Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. I watched the trailer for this movie, and I immediately thought, oh my god, this movie's gonna suck so bad. It's John Mulaney and Andy Samberg, and one of them's 2D and one of them's 3D, and they're just gonna be like annoying. Not to say I don't like their comedy, but in this case, I was like, ugh, they ruined it. And then I went and actually watched the movie after seeing the Ugly Sonic clip on Twitter.
Best wishes, Ugly Sonic. There you go, kid.
They're laughing at me. I know that.
And I watched through this movie, and I don't know what it was about the writing and what it was about the way they made the movie, but it was like pretty incredible to me. Like the animation ended up being pretty beautiful and like weaved itself through this real world, just like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But then they just had all these references and like art styles. You would never see a movie like this made by like Nintendo. Like they'd never do this with all of their IPs and characters. But Warner Bros. Is so like, I guess, I don't know. They improved this and it was like, it's awesome. I highly recommend it. I think it's funny. I think it's cool. I probably liked it more than I should have, but it is what it is. Okay, next up, number 4 on the list, snuck in right before the end of the year. It is Weird, the Al Yankovic story. I've never seen a movie that I wish I made so bad. Like when I get old, I want to make a movie about my life and just lie about like every part of it, and the whole story is just like this fantasy, but it's so funny. It's like the best biopic I've ever seen, and I grew up listening to Weird Al. I really love him, and this film just was so funny. The writing just cracked me up. One of my favorite actors, Daniel Radcliffe. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he plays Weird Al Yankovic in this movie, and he's so great. I love all of the movies he's been doing recently. Swiss Army Man a few years ago might be my favorite movie of all time. And he does awesome in that. This movie is just so funny and odd and could only really be done by Weird Al. I've watched it like 3 times, like the first week I watched it. And I still want to watch it a few more times because it's just so, it's so great. There's like, it's so self-aware of what it is. Even the biopic, like faked out, done wrong, whatever, is like also self-aware. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's just so funny and the jokes are just so, it's like every single scene is like a bit from I Think You Should Leave. Okay, number 3, top 3 would have to be Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. God, this movie's awesome. This is another funny movie. I mean, oh my God. All the movies on this list are like funny in different ways. And this one has its own very wholesome, like cute, heartwarming story that just is like so nice. I love this movie. It's got very interesting audio choices too when it comes to the mixing and the vocals and the way they do everything. It's like really great. I think if I had to say one thing, I think at times the pacing was a little bit weird, but it really did make up for it with the overall theme of the story and the jokes and how everything weaved together. It was like nothing else I've ever seen, which I can say about, I mean, every single movie on this list. The next movie on my list, number 2, is going to have to be a highly anticipated movie for me this year, and it really paid off. It's Jordan Peele's Nope. This is the kind of movie that like fosters so much discussion among people after the movie. I think with a lot of these movies, I mean, especially these top 2, the popularity of the movie, I think, ends up diminishing just how good the movie really is and makes it feel overrated. But every time I revisit both of these next 2 movies, I really realize, I'm like, oh my God, I really do think these movies are so special. And with Nope, I just really found such an admiration for the work. And there's so many interesting things when it comes to the way they did the lighting at night and the way they designed the monster and the twists in the movie that really lent itself to this story that I just don't understand how anyone could really piece together in the way that Jordan Peele did. You know, a lot of people were disappointed about the lack of horror and the leaning into this sci-fi direction, and I think it really is the best version of Jordan Peele we've seen so far. Even though Get Out is another top 10 movie of mine, I do think Nope is where he has shined the best, and I feel like I'm more excited than ever for what he has to come because Nope has proven himself to be the most consistent director right now in Hollywood for me. I know his taste in actors, in writing, in overall ambience of a film, and I know that I'm going to enjoy that from him down the line. I think a lot of people had an issue with OJ's acting in the movie and thought it was too dull or whatever, but I really did think that was the standout performance, even above Keke Palmer, who I think easily deserves like the best performance of the year. The same thing with Daniel Kaluuya is that like the way he acted with his eyes and the small minute actions that really stood out and expressed his character. And when he did have big motions and big emotions, you really felt them because they were in contrast with the usual shell that he hides under. And I thought that no one could have better paired with that character than Keke Palmer's character. I think she must have been the most likable character in a movie that I've seen in a long time, and I just am obsessed with her work. I also think the Best Buy guy was great too. I thought every performance in this movie was wonderful. Oh, Steven Yeun, how could I have forgot Steven Yeun? Like my favorite actor. He kills it in this movie. He's unbelievable. Every time I see this movie, I'm like, wow, that is just, I love it. I love it. But you know what I love more than that movie? My number one pick, okay? And what is my number one pick? I feel like most people might know. It kind of fits me, right? I love this movie. It might be one of my favorite movies of all time, if not my favorite. It was directed by Daniels, and it is Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. The first time I watched this movie, it was unlike any movie I've ever seen, and I've never felt this way towards a movie ever before in my life. There's probably people rolling their eyes at me right now, but it really was special to me. I watched that movie and I was obsessed with it the first moment I watched. It really was a film that encapsulated a lot of the feelings that I have currently in my life and, you know, in my life at the time especially, and being able to watch something so new and creative and interesting and heart-wrenching and funny just mesh together in such a beautiful way. It changed the way that I see movies. And when that happens, I have to say that, you know, that's like an important film. That's something that needs to be remembered and needs to be noticed and recognized as a really beautiful piece of art. I know there was a lot of criticism around the wackiness of it and the artistic style and direction that the movie had, but for me, I couldn't really love it more. Everything is meticulously placed in the right place at the right time. And although it doesn't benefit some movies, it really does benefit Everything Everywhere All at Once. Every single shot matters. Every single shot means something. I thought the cinematography was wonderful. I loved the acting performances. I thought the music was great. I loved the writing. I thought it was a very funny movie. And I don't really know what else I can say about it. There is not a thing about that movie that I could think about improving, and that is why it's my favorite movie of the year. Every single time I watch it, there's never a moment where I'm bored. I always am trying to like really visualize the plot, but it takes so many twists and turns and really does this thing where it kind of branches out and gets a little messy and then ties everything back together just like in a snap. And Daniels have proven themselves to be my favorite directors. This and Swiss Army Man are two of my favorite movies ever. I love their short films. I love the way they work. And I'm very excited to see what they do next. Anyways, I think that's all I have to really say. Yeah, I'll do a video where I talk about all the movies I watched in January once January is over. And I can do a little rank system, ranky time. Down below in the comments, let me know your top 3 movies this year. And then go through the rest of the comments and like the ones that have movies that were your favorite movies. And we'll see as a community what movie is everyone's favorites, you know? Anyways, that's all I gotta say. Have a good day. Bye-bye.